wearing my Dragonlance shirt, and we're talking about Legends Volume 2 War of the Twins by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. Hi, Cleo. Anyway, let's talk about War of the Twins. So, Caramon, Raceland, and Lady Chrysania are jumped 100 years into the future from where they were on the timeline. The cataclysm has happened, and they are transported to right before the Dwarf Gate Wars. Raceland's plan to have Caramon raise an army to march on the gates of Thor Barden because there is a portal that will take Raceland and Chrysania to the abyss so that Raceland can challenge Takesis, the evil god who was trying to enter Kryn in the Chronicles, into battle where he will defeat her and become the new god. But Raceland starts to realize that he's potentially in a time loop because even though he's defeated Fist and Dantalus, he's also kind of the reincarnation of Fist and Dantalus. And which is Fist and Dantalus and which is Raceland? Is he stuck in a time loop because Fist and Dantalus tried this? Or does he have something that will potentially have things go in his favor? Meanwhile, Tasselhoff is transported into the abyss, where he is being tormented by Takesis, or Takesis, depending on who is narrating the book, I suppose, who says that Raceland is out of his element. And that's basically War of the Twins. There are other characters in this, but they pretty much stay in this novel. What did I think of it? If I had to pick a weak link between these three Legends books, which are all really solid, it's probably War of the Twins is my least favorite. This is the big character development for Caramon, but I don't like all of it. Caramon suddenly has, like, a lust for Chrysania. Same as Raceland, they have this weird love triangle with Chrysania. But Caramon's married to Tika, and Tika's the love of his life. But I think this is just to show that Caramon is still in a very dark place. He is still the puppet of his brother. And we really see him kind of overcome that in this. Tasselhoff is not in this book all that much, and that's disappointing. The thing I liked about Time of the Twins was the amount of Tasselhoff we got, because it's a very grim, dark, not grim dark, but it's a very grim story. And Tasselhoff's, in his Kender goofiness, really lightened the mood on things. And we don't get a lot of that. We do get some Tasselhoff stuff, and Tasselhoff gets to shine in this book. It's just, in my opinion, there's just not enough Tasselhoff. I like all the characters they bring into this that are unique to this book. We have a dwarf who is fighting on one of the sides of dwarves that they're trying to hold their keep, the keep of Thor Barden, but he doesn't like that the dwarves are going to have a civil war, so he shaves his beard off in shame, which is, in Dragonlance, is one of the worst things that a dwarf can do, is shave their beard. Even the women have whiskers, of the dwarvish women. So it's almost sacrilegious that he do that, but he is living in shame. He's the hero of the Dwarf Kingdom, but of Thor Barden, but he doesn't like that. He will follow his king's orders, but he's not going to like it while he does it. And the motivations of the people of the army of Fist and Dantalus that Caramon's leading makes sense. There's absolute famine and plague that is all over Kryn, and the people are suffering, and they want help from the dwarves. The dwarves are refusing. Some of the dwarves are refusing other dwarves And so the mountain dwarves and the hill dwarves are about to go to war against one another. So the I believe it's the hill dwarves side with Fist and Dantalus, and it's just sad. Raceland's using all of these people and leading them essentially to their doom. We kind of know how the Dwarfgate Wars go from the Chronicles, so we know this is going to go very poorly for everyone involved. And it just is really sad that it is an end to justify Raceland's means. And in respect, Chrysania's going along because she just loves Raceland blindly, and she is arrogant and naive at the same time still, with her whole, she thinks she can bring Caramon back to the side of good, and that's sad in and of itself. And then there's a little conflict with Raceland on whether or not, because she's essentially cannon fodder as well, right? They're all cannon fodder to Raceland, but he does feel some sort of guilt. We still have a little bit of a human side, a slightly good side to Raceland still. There's a lot of layers to this book, but this book isn't very long. Unlike the Chronicles, which are a little, I think for modern readers, can come off as a little long in the tooth and very exposition-y. The Legends trilogy does not waste your time with that. Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, they get better each book in these first two trilogies of theirs. And I think the storytelling in this is very good. I just, in my opinion, I have a really a love for Time of the Twins, and the latter book, Test of the Twins, because Test of the Twins adds in another element that I'll get to when I review that I think is just slightly better than War of the Twins, because we kind of know the outcome already. And is there going to be change? Is there not going to be change? There's not. It's the weird thing with time travel, right? How much of it can change or how much of it has to stay the same, I don't know. Time travel is a weird thing. I tend to avoid it when I look for fiction. So I think it's still done well here, and this book has the least amount of the time travel. So yeah. Anyway, what would I rank this one? Probably get a 4.2 out of 5. It's worth your time to check out. These Legends books are really, really good. I have just a little teeny nitpicks with this, but otherwise, I think it's a really solid read, and it holds up. And I have two versions of this. This is a paperback. Is it a first print? I don't think it is. Oh, it is a first print. This is a first print paperback. I love these covers of the first prints. I think I have all the Legends now that I think about it in first print paperbacks. But I also have this 3-in-1 called the Annotated Legends, which I'll show off here. And this has Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman's. They've annotated the stories much like they did with the Chronicles. This was done in 2003. And I like it. This was right around the time I think War of the Souls had wrapped up, and Wizards of the Coast was fully had the mantle of Dragonlance at this point. So they did annotated Chronicles I think a couple years prior, and then they did the Legends. And I think it's really a fun, interesting look at what Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman's thoughts were at this time about their previous work. There's also some fun art in here, both Wizards of the Coast art and old TSR art scattered throughout. So that's neat. If you could track these down, they also did an oversized paperbacks for both the annotated Chronicles and Legends. They're worth checking out. They're neat. Some of the annotations are really are kind of lore related. Some of them are like, this is what we were thinking. Like, for instance, in one of the books, one of the authors is like, yeah, we kind of thought of Chrysania as like a Joan of Arc sort of character. Or it could be even like a goofy little thing. They're kind of all over the place, but it just adds another layer to your reading. I like annotated books, but I don't usually gravitate to them if you're a first time reader. Just track down like a paperback copy of these. It's worth your time to check out. Also, this spring, I believe, we're getting a re release 3-in-1 hardcover of the Legends trilogy, much like the how the Chronicles kind of got a. It's not really leather. It's kind of like a faux leather. It looks like it's a leather bound book, but it's not like how a lot of those Barnes and Noble hardcovers look. They did one. It's not Barnes and Noble brand, but Del Rey released one for the Chronicles, I believe last year. Might have been this year. I think it was this year. And they're doing one for Legends. And it makes me curious if they'll do one for like the Chaos War stuff. They're clearly just doing Weiss and Hickman stuff. They may do War of the Souls. That'd be huge, though. I know they did a 3-in-1 oversized paperback, and it was gargantuan back in like the mid 2000s. Anyone remember that? Like they've done like the Chronicles and Legends get re-released in some form or another about every decade or so at this point. But I remember in the mid 2000s, well, it was the early 2010s, they were still in print. They did a series of oversized paperbacks. There was a Chronicles one, a Legends one. And when I say Chronicles, they don't put Dragons of Summer's Flame in there. That's barely a Chronicles book. That's the Chaos War book. Right? I consider Second Generation and Dragons of a Summer's Flame to be like a kind of a duology, whereas the Chronicles, they're their own thing. That's the War of the Lance. This is the Chaos War, and this is Legends is just Raceland trying to become a god. The trilogy, so it's solid. They did Chronicles. They did Legends. They did the Elven Nations trilogy of all things. They did the Raceland Chronicles, which are written by Weiss. Margaret Weiss wrote the first one, and she co-wrote the second one with Don Perrin, who was her husband at the time. He's written a handful of Dragonlance books himself. They did that, and they did War of the Souls, and the War of the Souls one was gargantuan. And I've never seen, unless it wasn't red, I've never seen a red copy of that 3-in-1 War of the Souls that wasn't like beaten to death, like an Image Skybound compendium. Anyway, I highly recommend War of the Twins, like I did with Time of the Twins. It is worth your time to check out, and it's just amazing to me with this reread I've done of the Chronicles and now into the Legends, how good these books got. I'm not saying Dragons of Autumn Twilight is a bad book. I think it's quite a good book. It's a great D&D book. But it's a campaign book. It's to market a campaign. And Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, they weren't fiction authors. They worked for TSR. They were game people. And the fact that they rose up and like they're like, well, we might as well write this, right? We're doing a lot of the lore anyway. We might as well write the books. And it's just amazing how good authors these two became. Some of the greatest fantasy authors of all time, in my opinion. So anyway, have a nice day.